What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another video. Today we're going game by game, talking about the wide receivers I'd be starting and sitting this week. But as always, have to start things off as usual with the stat of the day. Yesterday's stat. I'm on the top 15 running backs, half PPR scoring the season. Who has a fewest touchdowns? Answers actually Dalvin Cook. Bit of a surprise there. Same two people got it this time. Davis Garrett on YouTube, at the Bigs on Twitter. Today's stat. Among wide receivers that have played at least 7 games since week 8, top 5 in half PPR scoring points per game are Cooper Kupp, Devonta Adams, Deebo Samuel, Justin Jefferson, and who is 5th? Okay, so I'm just going to remind you guys about the weather this week. A lot of situations, so all the yellow here, and again, this is just Roto Grinders weather. All the yellow situations are right now more just like keep an eye on. They're not huge concerns right now, but of course weather can change, so always be checking this page on like Saturday, Sunday morning. Definitely Sunday morning is of course the best, because some of these will get eliminated when there's no rain. One thing I talked about the other day for the New England game was originally that system looked like there was gonna be a lot of rain on Saturday and Sunday, chance for it to change to like snow in the afternoon. Right now, again, this is why weather can change. It's looking warmer on Sunday, so probably not gonna switch over to snow. And then it also looks a little bit less of the rain, and chance that there's even like no rain during the game. So again, keep an eye on all these situations. On 3 we highlighted were Chicago, the Chicago game, which has seen its total drop even more, which we'll go over. Windy, cold, not a fun game environment. Buffalo might snow, and it's gonna be cold and windy, so that's not great. And then the Green Bay game, not necessarily like, you know, rain, wind, all that stuff, but it's gonna be like 5 degrees, right? And that's obviously like, if a game is only 30 with none of those conditions, that's not too bad. It's cold, right? 5 degrees is freezing. Okay, that's really, really cold, and so that could definitely limit some production. So again, keep an eye on this page. But with that, we'll go over the matchups. So I've updated the injuries, COVID situations here. We'll go over all of those. First up, Dolphins at Titans. Totals dropped. I believe it was a point. 39.5 point total now. That is a very low total. That's 18 points for the Dolphins, 21.5 for the Titans, 3.5 point home favorites for the Titans. For the Dolphins, the only person you're really looking at is Jalen Waddle. If you were desperate, did I say for the Titans? We always start with the road team. So whatever I say, we'll start with the road team for the Dolphins. Waddle's the only one I'm considering. You can start Parker. I would say you should probably be in a 14 or 16 team league if you're doing that. If you're in the championship of a 12 team league and you're starting Parker, you probably need to understand, like, did he even have a target last week? I mean, this team is designing their offense around, we'll use the running backs, and when we need to pass the ball, it's Waddle. Waddle's like the focal point of like the wide receiver core, and I was recommended or asked I talk about tight ends, so I'll like mention them as well. But Waddle's the main focus. Then they'll move over to Gesicki, and Parker's kind of after that. And given, again, this is a really bad game environment in general, we're not expecting the Dolphins to be just moving up and down the field, scoring at will, right? Scoring 18 points, which means they're probably not going to have a ton of yards. So I would play Waddle because, like, he's the wide receiver 14 right now. He's a really good play. Their scheming looks to him. That's very, very important. They want these targets going to him. If you're getting schemed looks, and you know, he's a fantastic prospect, he's something they want to develop, it just makes all the sense in the world for them to use him. So he's the only guy I'd be starting there. And then Gesicki's like, you know, a low-end tight end 1. Not, you know, the most upside in the world, because Waddle's going to get so many schemed looks, and because the total's low, and you really get your upside in tight ends through touchdowns, right? Who could happen to score 2? Well, if the offense is probably only going to score 2 at most, I mean, it's a pretty low percent chance that both of them happen to go to Gesicki. So I think you can have a good game. I think he's a low-end 1. I don't think anything screams you gotta play Mike Gesicki this week. For the Titans, it's A.J. Brown. I mean, he's going to be the focal point of this entire offense. The Dolphins have a very strong defense. That's why we've seen this being a low total game, because the Dolphins should lose, but it's not like the Titans are going to just blow them out, right? So A.J. Brown, I would absolutely be starting him. I really don't see a scenario where you're not. There was a little bit of concern. He was a DMP on Thursday, so we'll see what happens on Friday. But every report seems to be like that's just precautionary, right? Like they know they got to keep him healthy. They know he doesn't need to be going out there and practicing every day. And so it seems like a precaution, but obviously if he's a DNP Friday and then he's like a game time decision, that'll factor into your start set. But I'm pretty sure he's going to be good to go. I personally would not really play Julio Jones, even if he's activated. Again, he was placed on the COVID list on Monday, so he can return. But regardless, if he plays, doesn't play, I wouldn't play him. Plays, doesn't play, I'm playing A.J. Brown. That doesn't really factor in anything, and there's just no tight end on the Titans that you're actually playing. Next up, Falcons at Buffalo Bills. Bills 14.5-point home favorites, 44-point total, meaning less than 15 points and less than 15 points for the Falcons, almost 30 points for the Bills. For the Falcons, let's be honest, do we really want to be attacking their offense in general? We talked about you can play Patterson. We talked about in the running game in yesterday's video. But as far as the passing attack, like there's just not all that much. You can play Russell Gage if you really need to, but you better be in a 16-team league. I don't even think in the championship, a 14-team league, you should be attacking him. Buffalo has the second best pass defense TVOA, first in yards per attempt allowed. We've talked about this game having a bad game environment for the weather. They're projected to score less than 15, so they're probably only going to score like one touchdown. It's just not a spot to attack. I think you're playing Kyle Pitts. Just know that there's not that many weapons for him to take away, and so when he goes up against a bad defense, they're not good enough to really just focus in and take away one player. When he faces a really good defense, they have the pieces to be like, okay, all you have is Pitts and Gage in the passing game with a little bit of Patterson, and they're not even using him as much in the passing game anymore. It's so much easier for an elite defense like Buffalo to be like, all right, you know what, beat us with everyone else. We'll take away Kyle Pitts. So definitely a low floor, definitely not that high of a ceiling, but I think he's talented enough. I think that he's going to have to be used enough to where tight end 9 is where I have him right now. I think you're playing him. But like if you happen to have, two top 10 tight ends and you've got someone you want to play over him, well, if they're ranked higher, do that. And I'm okay benching him because this matchup, this game environment is so bad. For Buffalo, Stiggs, we see, so one note, look at the injuries here. Emmanuel Sanders, limited on Wednesday, so it looked like he was going to be good to go. And then a in-week downgrade, never good, on Thursday. And this was injury related, whereas like with A.J. Brown, it was a downgrade, but we knew it was more maintenance related. This is injury related. He's suffering this knee injury. And so if he practices Friday, it should be good to go. And if he does practice, I would say just like no one basically. It's Diggs and no one else. If he doesn't practice Friday and he's ruled out for this game, we can look towards Beasley. We can look towards Gabriel Davis. I would have probably more interest in Gabriel Davis. You can see here, I'm projecting Sanders to like maybe play. But you would basically see both Beasley and Gabriel Davis move up in the rankings, probably only into the 40s, so they wouldn't be must plays. But in deeper formats, you can start looking to them because they are going to score around 30 points. And if those guys are on the field every single play and they have a heightened target share because Emmanuel Sanders isn't out there, and also one less person to catch a touchdown, I think they're like quality plays. My lean would be towards Gabriel Davis because he produces whenever he's on the field. But yeah, just check the rankings as far as that's concerned. Remember, they're free. TheFantasyFootballAdvice.com. You should probably just be following along in the video in case they changed, although I didn't update this morning, so it's unlikely when you're watching this. If you're watching this right when it comes out, they're probably the same as you see on the screen here. But if you're watching this the next day, they have probably changed. Jaguars at Patriots. Going to be an ugly, ugly game. Jaguars 16.5-point road underdogs. That is absolutely brutal. 16.5-point road dogs and only a 42-point total, which is actually lowered from what it was yesterday when we did the running back video. So 12.75 is the projected point total for the Jaguars. That is not good. They're probably not going to play very well. I tweeted out yesterday, Lawrence has one passing touchdown in the last 8 weeks combined. So think about that if you're thinking about starting Marvin Jones, Tavon Austin, Laviska if he's out there. One touchdown in the last 8 weeks. So these guys are very, very unlikely to score. Patriots third in both pass defense DVOA and yards per pass attempt allowed. No, you're just not playing Jacksonville Jaguars wide receivers. For the Patriots, we see Aguilar DNP Wednesday, DNP Thursday. I believe it's a concussion. I don't think he's going to end up playing, but check the status on Friday and then see what Schefter puts out on Saturday. If he is out, It's obviously probably the biggest boost for Harry, but you're not playing Harry. But I would say Myers becomes someone that you can play. It's a good matchup against Jacksonville. I'll say that like they haven't been like a smash for wide receivers, and especially in this spot because like Patriots don't need to throw it, and whenever the Patriots don't need to throw it, they don't typically. So they'll be relatively efficient in the passing game. You can see 31st in pass defense DVOA for the Jaguars. But like in the second half, you kind of need that for Myers. You need him to be used throughout the game because he's unlikely to hit him really like deep touchdowns or even score a touchdown in general. So you need like, 10 targets. And that could be on pace for, he could be on pace for doing that, in the first half. But then the second half will hit. They'll be up by like 2 touchdowns, and they're probably just going to run it a ton, play really conservative, drain the clock. And so probably not going to be a fun second half to watch. And so I'm cool benching every single pass catcher really in this game. Hunter Henry would be the top option at tight end, and he'd be an okay option just because, again, 30 points for the Patriots. He is their red zone weapon, so he's unlikely to catch more than a few passes, but he's used heavily in the red zone. If they're going to be in the red zone a good amount, it's going to be the running backs and Hunter Henry. That's just like who they use in the red zone, and so he's someone who it's like, oh, I need someone to maybe catch 2 touchdowns. Hunter Henry could do that, so I think he's a quality low-end one. Have him as a tight end 10 right now. Next up, Raiders at Colts, 44.5 point total. The Colts are now touchdown, 7-point home favorites. Still no news on if Wentz is going to be cleared in time for Sunday morning. The line shifted back to what it was beforehand, so that's kind of what people are expecting. But obviously, like, we just can't know, right? We'll probably get some sort of outlook on Saturday, but we can't possibly know until we know. Like, we can't possibly be like, oh, he's going to be good to go, right? We don't know how his body's going to recover. Like, we have no idea, right? So just wait until Sunday morning, or if we get an indication on Saturday night. My guess is that he comes back, but it's like a 60-40 guess. One other note for injuries, I guess a few other notes. Waller probably out, but I believe he can return in time to play, so keep an eye on that. And then Mac, COVID list, I guess he could return, but who really cares? Big one, I guess, sort of big, is Doyle. DNP Wednesday, DNP Thursday. Not looking like he'll play. That is a boost to Mo Cox. Right now I have him as a tight end 30. I believe his projection might go up to like 7, something around there. So would he be like a must play? Absolutely not. But if you're looking in a deeper format to really stream someone, it's a good matchup. The Raiders have allowed production to tight ends. He is talented. He is using the red zone. He is probably going to be out there on pretty much every snap. And so he is a sleeper. If he's probably available on free agency, is why I'm talking about him. So if you need someone, he'll probably end up in like the mid-teens, I would say, for ranking. So it wouldn't be a must play. But if you need someone, he's not a bad option. But you'd only go there if Wentz is also playing. If they're a backup quarterback play, I don't want really anyone in the passing game. I think you're playing Pittman if Wentz is playing. He'll probably, if I like get confirmation that Carson Wentz is the quarterback, I would say his projection will go up to like the low 12s, which still doesn't make him a must play. Like it'd be like the upper teens for the projection. And it's possible you're in the championship, you probably have a strong team, that you have better options. I would go with the rankings on that one. I think he's a good play. I think he's the focal point of the passing attack. And they're not going to run every play. They're going to run a ton, but he has such a high target share role that, he's going to be a good play. But it really just depends. If you have 3 top 15 wide receivers and Pittman, you can only play 3, play the 3 top 15 wide receivers, right? But don't feel bad if you're playing Pittman. He's a really good wide receiver, and he's going to be heavily used. No other wide receivers for the Colts. For the Raiders, it's just Hunter Renfrow. I mean, he's good enough. They are projected to be trailing in this game. They kind of filter targets to that area of the field. I think that if you have Hunter Renfrow, it's a very similar take to Pittman. Really quality play. Feel good about playing him. Feel good about the floor, especially for Hunter Renfrow. I would say that his projection will drop a little bit if Waller is activated. But let's be honest, I'm saying Waller's likely out. He hasn't practiced in a very long time, and he can't practice this week, right? He's like first eligible to return right on like Sunday. And so are they really going to bring him back after missing a bunch of games, not practicing at all, and just throw him into a game? I would say no. I would say it's very unlikely that Waller is out there, and so I'm projecting Moreau to be the starting tight end, and he'd be like a fine streaming option as like a high end too. But yeah, that's a boost for Hunter Renfrow. I think he's a quality low-end wide receiver too. Bucks at Jets, another very, very lopsided game. Put it in Buffalo here. Tampa Bay, oh my goodness. TB space. There we go. Bucks at Jets. 13-point road favorites for the Bucks. 45.5-point total, meaning we're looking at almost 30 points for the Bucks and just over 16 points for the Jets. Very attackable spot here at every position for the Bucks. The Jets are a very bad defense, and then the Bucks are a very good defense. So it's a very, very bad spot if you have Jets players, although not the worst spot in the week. There are teams projected to score less than they are. For injuries, Evans is probably going to miss this week. I believe he actually can return. I have to update this little thing right there. Godwin's definitely out. Fournette's definitely out. Evans returned to practice. It seems like he'll be good to go. They were saying that same thing, that like everyone who returns from COVID, it seems like, has just clearly like been gassed when they're coming back. And we saw with Tyreek Hill last week, he was not playing every snap. He was not being heavily targeted. You know, we're probably going to see it with Allen Robinson if he's able to return. Like, these guys are just not 100% when they first return. So that's kind of what it seems like it's going to be for Mike Evans. But we'll see if he is fully activated. AB was a DMP on Thursday, so watch that. Was expecting him to practice, so keep note. It could just be a maintenance day. He looked really good, obviously, last Sunday. He's coming off of this injury. It might just be like, hey, we don't want to push you too hard. Take Thursday off. So if he comes back limited Friday, he'll be good to go. If he's DMP again on Friday, that's a problem, right? So until we get confirmation for Evans, I don't really know. Maybe I'll put him in. I don't know. Like, until we get confirmation that he's playing and confirmation that he's not going to be just like gassed every play, I'm not going to move him super high in the rankings. I think that when he's officially activated, he's going to end up being like a low end too, because the other problem is there's no reason to throw him out there and like feature him in the passing attack because the Jets are so bad. Like, the Bucks are probably going to get up quickly. They're probably going to stay up. They'll be able to run the ball. They'll be able to use Gronk, use Antonio Brown. So they don't necessarily need to give Evans a million targets. I think he'll be used in the red zone. So could he have one of his vintage, like 3 receptions for 15 yards, but 2 touchdown games? Yeah. I don't think the spot sets up for him to just like go nuclear. That being said, if you need to play him, which you might need to do, and he's out there, I'm cool with it. He'll probably end up final rankings. My guess is in that Hunter Renfrow, Pittman sort of range. AB, though, if he's out there, play him. I have much more confidence in that. He's got a lot of incentives coming up that if he scores touchdowns, gets receptions, yardage, that he hits like, $333,000 bonuses, like multiple of them. So you better believe he's going to want to do that. He and Brady are friends, so they're going to be, aiming for those goals. So AB, a very high confidence play this week. Gronk, a high confidence play. Obviously, any tight end can dud, but his chances of multiple touchdowns are as high as any tight end in the NFL. And his floor is relatively high as well for a tight end. So I think you're playing AB, you're playing Gronk, Evans low end too. For the Jets, I personally don't know who I'd play. It doesn't seem like Crowder's going to play. It doesn't seem like Elijah Moore's going to play. If both those guys are out, you're looking at like Braxton Berrios, and it's just absolute garbage. Like, the only one I'd consider playing is Elijah Moore. But even then, I'd prefer not to. He's coming off of the injury. We don't know how healthy he is, and it's not like this team is projected to do all that well. So personally, probably wouldn't play any of them. If you need to play Elijah Moore in a deep, deep format, you can. I just really would prefer not to. Next up, Eagles at the football team. Pretty average, 45-point total, 3.5-point road favorites for the Eagles. So we're looking at a just over 24-point game for the Eagles, just under 21 for the football team. For the Eagles, it's really only Devonta Smith and Dallas Goedert. You can see they're the two highest projected. Devonta Smith is like a very, very high-end 3 at the wide receiver 25. Dallas Goedert, wide receiver, or tight end, 5. And then you jump all the way down to Quez Watkins. Again, it's a run-first offense that we've talked about every single week. And so even these guys have a very low floor. I think that Devonta Smith is a quality play. Football team 27th in pass defense DVOA, 30th in yards per pass attempt allowed. They are most attackable through the air, and it's a relatively close spread, so you don't think that they're going to be able to just run the ball every play. Also, Miles Sanders out. That's their top running back. It seems like, so Jordan Howard was a DNP Wednesday, but he was limited Thursday, so that to me indicates he's going to play this week. So we're going to have a rotation of Jordan Howard and Boston Scott, and that'll still allow them to run the ball. If Howard was out, that would like kind of force them to lean a little bit more pass heavy. But yeah, I just think Devonta Smith is like a quality play. He's behind those guys like Evans if he returned, Hunter Renfrow, Michael Pittman. He's kind of in that tier below them, so definitely not a must start, but good matchup. He's clearly their one. If you got to play him, I'm cool with that. And then Dallas Goedert, he's a top 5 tight end. We've seen the weekly ceiling, but again, we've seen the weekly floor. He is not a guaranteed smash. He's just, also like the second target in the passing game. And if they're forced to throw the ball, which is still possible, only a 3.5 point spread, he's going to have a really good game. I think he's a very quality play. I'd be playing him if I had him. Football team. It's Terry McLaurin and it's nobody else. Really, really tough year for McLaurin. He hasn't had much help. It's been weird also. So Rivera comes out and he says it's going to be a split between Heineke and Allen. Both of them are going to play. They're going to kind of rotate in. Or maybe it's just like, as soon as Heineke plays awful, which he probably will at some point, Kyle Allen will come in. But then the offensive coordinator says, no, it's only going to be Heineke. So who really knows what's going to happen? I guess my best guess is that they start off with Heineke. If he plays well, he stays in at the quarterback. If he plays like he has the past month, then they'll bring in Allen. That's kind of what it'll probably be. Regardless, they're both bad quarterbacks. And so you can play McLaurin, but it's only as a low end 2 to a flex play. And again, if you have other options that you're like, do I need to play McLaurin? No, you don't need to play Terry McLaurin. And then no tight ends. We've seen Ricky Seals-Jones produce when he's a starting tight end, but not recently. So no, you don't need to play Ricky Seals-Jones. I think there's other tight ends you can go after. You definitely don't need to play Bates. Giants at the Bears should be a awful game to watch. I cannot envision myself watching this game. Totals dropped from 38, which is pathetically low, to 37. Obviously, that's a combination of really, really bad offenses mixed with a terrible game environment as far as the weather is concerned. So we're looking at 15.5 points for the Giants, 21.5 for the Bears. We're going to see a lot of punts. We might see some turnovers, but then 3 and outs after the turnovers. It's going to be gross. Bears still 6.5 point home favorites. Don't know who the quarterback's going to be. They've said Fields is starting quarterback if he's healthy, but we don't know if he's healthy enough to play. Andy Dalton was practicing in full, so he can play. He would be eligible. And obviously, if you've got skill players on the Bears, you want Andy Dalton as the quarterback. I think long-term, Fields is going to be awesome, but short-term, you want Andy Dalton returning. Allen Robinson still recovering. He has not been great this season, and he's returning from COVID. I can't envision you playing him unless you're in a 32-team league. I don't see why you'd play him. The Giants, Barkley was DNP Wednesday, limited Thursday. That was probably just maintenance related. Tony was DNP on Wednesday and Thursday. Don't know if he's going to play. Shepard is out. Slayton was placed on the COVID list. We're going to have Glennon and Fromm both probably playing. I can't really see you playing a Giants player. If they got you the championship, you're probably in, I just said, a 32-team league. I can't envision anyone starting them, so I would just stay away from pretty much every single pass catcher on the Giants. I don't see you playing any of them. And then for the Bears, it's only Mooney. Even Kmet, he gets production taken away by Jimmy Graham in the red zone, which is where tight ends get all their upside. So sure, he's the tight end, 18, 6.8 points. That's fine. But he's probably not going to score, and so he's probably in that 5 to 7 range, and that's not very fun. So probably not him. But Mooney, he's the most talented wide receiver on this team right now. He'll be the most targeted. The problem is it's a really, really gross game environment, and you'd prefer just not to have to play him. But he'd be the one where it's if you have to be in that range, talented enough, and if Dalton is starting, the projection might increase by a point. And so Dalton starting, we can go there. Fields starting, I'm less inclined to go there because, again, the weather isn't going to be great. Chiefs at Bengals. 51-point total. We finally have a high total game. It's this one, and it's the Cardinals in the Cowboys game. Yeah, Chiefs at Bengals. 5 points right now is the spread in favor of the Chiefs. So we're looking at 28-23. I believe that's the exact same line that it was yesterday. For the Chiefs, Tyreek was not 100% last week, but I would imagine he'd be pretty close to 100% this week. You're playing him. Kelsey should return. You're playing him. Clyde is likely out this week. I don't expect him to return. McKinnon could return. Doesn't really mean a whole lot for the pass catchers, but figured I would point that out. We talked about Byron Pringle going into last week, saying that like when he gets the opportunity, he's a good wide receiver. He commands targets. You definitely want to be playing him over Mecole Hardman. He's talented, right? And he'll produce when given the volume. But didn't necessarily think we should be playing him because, well, we said that maybe if Kelsey missed, you could like slide him in there. But with Tyreek Hill playing, you imagine that Tyreek Hill will get the targets. Now, obviously, we didn't know Tyreek Hill wasn't going to be 100% last week, and so that's why Pringle got more looks. This week, with Kelsey back, with Hill closer to 100%, you really just can't be playing Byron Pringle, but he's someone to keep in the back of our minds. If we ever have an opportunity to play him, we should. And if he's ever, like in future years, goes to a team where he could be the 1 or the 2, he's good. And so we should be using him in fantasy. I don't see us using him this week. I think most of the production is going to flow through Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelsey, and he's only going to get like secondary looks in the championship. I really just want players getting higher volume than that. For the Bengals, I think you're starting T. Higgins, you're starting Jamar Chase, and you're not starting Tyler Boyd. Pretty much the same as every single week. We see like 525 passing yards, something like that, for Burrow last week. We see the long touchdown for Boyd, but he needs that. He'd need to hit on a long touchdown. It's Higgins and Chase getting the majority of this volume. And Kansas City, like, you look at their DVOA, it's like 13th in pass defense, DVOA 25th in yards per attempt allowed, but they're still a good defense, and they especially play well in like the second half of the year. And so this isn't just a spot where the Bengals are just going to be able to like easily shred the defense like they were able to do last week. So Higgins start, Chase start. I'm not 100% sure I'd be starting Tyler Boyd. Rams at Ravens up next. This game has a 46.5 point total, 4.5 point road favorites for the Rams. So we're looking at a 25.5 point projection for the Rams, 21 points for the Ravens. Not looking like to me that Lamar's going to play. Noticeable limp on Thursday when he was limited in practice, and then DNP, or limp on Wednesday, DNP on Thursday. Unless he goes out there and he's somehow miraculously like a full participant on Friday, I would imagine they just go with Huntley because Huntley was still fine. They allow Lamar to recover. He is still hurt. He's very clearly still hurt. I don't see why they throw him out there. Marquise Brown, DNP with an illness on Thursday. That entire team is sick for the entire year. It is absolutely wild. But probably going to play. If it's a non-COVID illness, he's probably going to be out there and playing. Thing is, I don't know I'd 100% play him. Like, you'd absolutely be playing Mark Andrews. He has been a stud. And if Huntley's the quarterback, he might be the tight end 1 on the week. Like, Andrews has been phenomenal with people who are not named Lamar Jackson basically this season. But yeah, regardless who the quarterback is, you're playing Mark Andrews. And Marquise Brown is fine, especially if this illness like holds him out on Friday too. I don't know. I mean, LA is like a really, really good defense. They're focusing in on Mark Andrews. They'll have the ground game. I don't necessarily think you need to be playing Marquise Brown. So maybe you can bench him. For the Rams, pretty much the same as always. You obviously start Cooper Kupp. Odell's like an upside option. We just saw Baltimore get absolutely shredded by the Bengals last week. 6th in rush defense DVOA, 1st in yards per carry allowed, but then 30th in pass defense DVOA, 32nd in yards per pass attempt allowed. You have to think that LA is going to do a decent job at throwing, and so Odell, quality, low end too. I think he's right outside that same range of like Pittman and Renfro, but very close to those guys. And you could easily see him catch a long touchdown, easily see him, featured twice in the red zone. So I think he's a quality play. I would play him over Marquise Brown. And then I'm not in love with Higbee. He's like fine. He's fine. He's a tight end 2 on a good team that could catch a touchdown, but I don't love it. Texans at the 49ers. Another kind of gross game. 44-point total, but 12.5-point home favorite to the 49ers, meaning we're looking at under 16 points for the Texans, just over 28 for the 49ers. For the Texans, Brandon Cook should be back. David Johnson on the COVID list again. So we're kind of looking at Cooks, I guess, a little bit, but really 15.5 points against an offense that is going to be able to run the ball, going to be efficient on offense. Well, I guess we technically don't know, because who's their quarterback going to be? It doesn't seem like, to me, Jimmy G is going to be available to play, but it seems like they want him to be. Like, it doesn't seem like they want to be playing Trey Lance. If Trey Lance is starting quarterback, it gives a little bit more of a chance that the Texans will be able to stay in the game, because we've seen Trey Lance be phenomenal in fantasy, but look not great as an actual NFL quarterback. And so in the future, obviously, like, he's going to develop, he's going to look better, but right now we don't really know what he's going to look like. So could he look horrible and Houston stay in this game? Maybe. But even if that happens, they're just going to run it a ton, and it's still going to be a pretty low scoring game. Like, it's unlikely Houston wins a shootout is basically what I'm saying. And I feel like you kind of need that from Brandon Cooks. I think his projection will go up. I think he will end up at the end of the week in like the late 20s, maybe mid 20s. So he'll be like a viable flex option, with the understanding that if the 49ers are able to just run the ball every single play with the occasional pass that'll be efficient, you are not going to see many offensive possessions for the Texans, and a lot of those possessions will be 3 and outs. A lot of them will be like run, pass, and so you're not going to see a ton of targets for Brandon Cooks, and he's not likely to be overly efficient on those targets. So I don't love the play, but if you need him in the flex, you can. I would just prefer someone else. Then for the 49ers, pretty much the same as always. Play Debo, play Kittle. Ayuk is fine, but especially if Elijah Mitchell returns, that's going to kind of kick Deebo Samuel out of the running back rotation a little bit. They'll still use him, but they'll use Mitchell more. And that's bad news for Ayuk, because now he's like the third option in the passing game, in a game that they're likely going to run the ball a lot. You kind of need Houston to be competitive for Ayuk to hit, and that doesn't seem likely this week, so I would personally bench Ayuk. Broncos at the Chargers. Up next, this game has a 46-point total, 6.5-point home favorites for the Chargers. Looking at just under 20 points for the Broncos, just over 26 for the Chargers. And we don't even really know if the Broncos are going to hit that number. Drew Lock expected to be the quarterback yet again. That is a downgrade for the offense. He is more aggressive by nature, but they don't want him to be. So he'll air it out. He'll take deep shots, but they want to limit him. You know, they basically are going to want to run the ball as much as humanly possible in this game. They don't want Drew Lock throwing it because, like, face it, he's just not that good of a quarterback. So with that being said, could Sutton hit deep? Could Judy hit deep? Sure. Would I play them in the championship? No. Even with Tim Patrick on the COVID list, if he's not able to play, like, it'll boost them. Obviously, they might move up, you know, Judy into like the upper 30s, Sutton into like the 40s, but I just can't see relying on these guys with Drew Lock at quarterback. So I really wouldn't play anyone besides Javonte Williams, and Melvin Gordon for the Broncos. For the Chargers, most attackable spot for Denver is through the slot, so you've got Keenan Allen as quality play. It seems like Mike Williams is going to be activated. Well, he is activated. It seems like he's going to play. I want to see like a report that like confirms he's good to go, because again, we've seen some of these guys return from the COVID list, and they're just clearly not 100%. So I want to see like some sort of practice report. I'll look at the beat writers for the Chargers. But it looks like, you know, Guyton, Eckler, Mike Williams, all going to play. That's going to bump Josh Palmer out of our consideration. It's going to bump Jared Cook down in our consideration. Guyton wasn't really a person we're playing, so it's really only down to Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. I would expect Williams to bump up into like the low 20s. That's kind of where I would put him. Still a difficult spot. The Broncos have a very quality defense, and they're least attackable on the outside, which is where Mike Williams plays. And so I would lean more towards Keenan Allen this week. Probably wouldn't be in love with playing Mike Williams. Detroit Lions at the Seattle Seahawks. This game has a low 42.5-point total. Pull that up. 7-point home favorites for the Seattle Seahawks, meaning just under 18 points for the Lions, just under 25 points for the Seahawks. Lions, very attackable defense any way you cut it. Seahawks like to run the ball, so you have to think they're going to do a lot of that. So a little bit of a narrative here. Also, Metcalf, we talked about how he was a DNP Wednesday, returned on Thursday. They're just playing around with like getting him rest, right? He's good to go. Everyone should be good to go for Seattle. And then I guess injuries for the Lions. DNP for Goff. I don't think Goff is going to end up playing. Swift was full on Wednesday, fully expecting him to play this week, so this should be the return of DeAndre Swift. Reynolds on the COVID list. I don't know if he's going to be activated, but you're not playing him anyways. What I was saying, little bit of narrative with like, is this, I believe this is the last home game for the Seahawks. Don't quote me on that, but I believe it is. Russ wants to stay. I'm not 100% sure the team is convinced in keeping him. And it just seems like he's like, I don't know, like his press conferences, he wasn't specifically asked if he's staying, but he was like, yeah, I really want to stay. Like, I really want to play here. Like, no one asked, but he just like came out and said that. And so it's like he clearly wants to stay. I don't know. It seems to me like we could just get a game where Wilson's like, you know what? I want to show I've still got it. Like, he's been awful this season. No. The team hasn't been fantastic. Obviously, Russell Wilson's an elite quarterback. Everyone knows that. But the numbers haven't been there for Wilson. So I feel like he wants to go out there and just crush it in this final home game, potentially. And so could we see a vintage Russell Wilson game? Maybe, because the Lions defense is attackable in every area, and so if he wants to crush it, he can. Is that guaranteed? No. But I think like you're playing Tyler Lockett and you're playing DK Metcalf. The same thing as always. They have a low floor, but I cannot see myself benching them. Really, really tough game environment last week. This week should be better, although Seattle hasn't been having like phenomenal weather recently. But fact remains, I think Wilson's going to want to go out there and have a great game, and it's a great matchup. So I think you're playing Lockett and you're playing Metcalf. You can play Everett. Everett's been getting a lot of looks, especially they'll feature him closer to the goal line. And so if you need a streaming option, tight end 11 for me right now, I think you can absolutely play Gerald Everett. For the Lions, it's a little bit of a negative boost with Swift playing for him under St. Brown, because it takes away a few of those like dump off targets. And we know St. Brown, basically all of his targets are very close to the line of scrimmage. But that being said, they're going to be losing this game. They want to develop him. It's just the exact same take we've had for the last like 2 months. They want to develop this kid. They don't have very much talent on the offense, especially with, Hawkinson missing time and Swift missing time. Like, he was just their only person, and why not develop him? You're losing anyways. Like, this is the kid you want to be part of your future. Give him a ton of looks. And that's what they've been doing. A ton of targets. I think you've got him under St. Brown. I know it's a negative with Swift coming back. The wide receiver 17 right now, I think is a really, really quality play again this week. Panthers at the Saints, a truly awful game. 38-point total. And this is in a dome. A 38-point total. 6.5-point home favorite to the Saints. So just under 16 points for the Panthers. Just over 22 for the Saints. For the Panthers, Sam Darnold, expected to be a starting quarterback. It's just been an embarrassing rotation of quarterbacks for them. DJ Moore's the only one you can consider starting. He's clearly their one. Will be the most targeted. He's the most talented. But it's the Saints. The Saints are 7th in pass defense CWA, 17th in yards per pass attempt allowed. It's a good defense. Sam Darnold's not a good quarterback. I think you've got DJ Moore. You can play him as a 2, play him in the flex. But, it's the same take as like some other players where it's like, if you have a better option, don't be afraid to bench DJ Moore. I don't think he's going to smash spot this week, and I wouldn't play any other Panthers pass catcher. And for the Saints, even with Traquan Smith probably not playing, I think he's going to exit the rankings. Some of those points will go to Marquez Callaway. I just don't see it. I mean, the Panthers, and even with the Panthers expected to not have Gilmore, like I don't see wanting to play any player on the Saints besides Alvin Kamara and maybe Taysom Hill if he's the starting quarterback. We get confirmation on that. Other than those two, if you're in like a 20-team league in the championship, you can play Callaway, but I just wouldn't play many players in this game. It's not a good game environment at all. But a really good game environment here is Cardinals at Cowboys. That's probably even the most fun game to watch of the week. I'll enjoy definitely Vikings and Packers. Definitely will enjoy Chiefs and Bengals. I think Rams and Raiders is going to be a really fun game to watch. That probably is it. Raiders and Colts could end up being good if it's a close game at the end. But I think with the playoff implications for this Cardinals and Cowboys game being played in a dome, get two really, really quality offenses. I know Hopkins is out for Arizona, and that would have made it even better to watch, but I think that's going to be the most fun game to watch. For the Arizona Cardinals, James Conner, DNP on Wednesday, DNP on Thursday, Rondale Moore, DNP on Wednesday, but limited Thursday. So maybe Rondale Moore can play. You're not playing him, but just mention it. I don't know if James Conner is going to play. Everything will be determined on the Friday practice. If he's a DNP on Friday, didn't practice all week, he's not going to be playing. But if he gets limited on Friday, it's at least possible. Obviously, we already talked about that with Chase Edmonds. Like, you're playing Chase Edmonds if James Conner's out. But the other thing to note there is if Conner's out, it's more likely they lean pass heavy, right? They're not just going to run the ball with Chase Edmonds every single play. So they're going to throw the ball a lot. And that's going to benefit the floor and ceiling of guys like Christian Kirk, like Zach Ertz, like AJ Green. And so if we get Conner out, all those guys are going to bump up in the rankings. I don't think any of them will be a must start, but I do think especially Christian Kirk, if Diggs especially is going to shadow AJ Green. I don't know if he's going to shadow anyone because I don't think he needs to. He might just stick to one side of the field. But if he ends up, playing more on the outside against AJ Green and they leave Kirk alone, then that's going to be really good for Kirk. If I was the Cowboys, I would have Diggs shadow Christian Kirk. He's clearly their best wide receiver. He's the one you are scared of the most hitting deep. So I would do that. But I guess we'll find out, right? I guess we don't really know what they're going to do. But yeah, Kirk is definitely a top option. I think you're starting Zach Ertz if you have him. And then AJ Green will bump up. Won't be a must start. Won't be someone you probably are playing in a very deep format for the championship. Maybe, but probably you don't need to go there because Dallas still has a really quality defense, right? And also really quality defense for the Cardinals. 5th in pass defense DVOA, 6th in yards per pass attempt allowed. They're a good pass defense. So we're not just going to see Dallas just get whatever they want. Also, Dallas running backs are very, very good, so they can still run the ball, especially if they get up. Love CeeDee Lamb, love Amari Cooper. At home, these guys have much higher floors, much higher ceilings. I was asked why Lamb is so high in the rankings. Look at the targets. He's been getting over 9 targets per game over the last 4 weeks, and that's including last week when he would have had way more targets, but they just dominated, right? They won by like 1 million points. They didn't need to throw the ball to CeeDee Lamb. So he's a good bet for like 9 to 10 targets in a really good game environment, especially against a team that might actually push them, which some teams have not done recently. And so I really like CeeDee Lamb this week. I think you're starting if you have him. Amari Cooper is a little bit of a bump down just because the target share is a little bit lower, but Amari Cooper at home has a massive ceiling. So you always have to just have him as a wide receiver too. I think he's a very quality play. And then after that, Gallup is obviously third. Fine. Could hit on a deep touchdown. I don't think you need to be playing Gallup. And then Dalton Schultz, he could have 2 touchdowns. He's a quality tight end, pretty high floor. And so I think Schultz is like a good play. But tight end 8, I don't really see him getting any higher than that. And it could still flip-flop, right? Like he could drop down to 10. He can move up to like 7, I guess. Like everyone in that 6 to 12 range is still relatively close. But Schultz is fine. There's nothing that stands out that says you absolutely need to be playing Dalton Schultz. But he's still just a good play this week just because the game environment is really good. You just want to be playing players in a game that has the potential to have 60, 65 points scored. Vikings at Packers. That's another one of those games if the weather was fine. Because the weather is going to be so bad, it decreases the chance that we see a back and forth 30 to 33 game. It can absolutely happen if we have quick scores. If Justin Jefferson catches a 60-yard touchdown, if Adams does the same, if something like that happens where we have a 2-play touchdown drive, MVS gets loose deep, that can contribute to a really high scoring game. But we're less likely to see that if it's 5 degrees outside, right? So, Minnesota, 6.5 point road dogs. Looking at a 20 to 26.5 point win for the Packers. So both teams should probably approach 20 and then push a little bit past that for the Packers. Obviously, start Adams, start Justin Jefferson. You don't need me to tell you that. Conklin was a DNP on Wednesday, but he was limited Thursday, so I believe he should be good to go. That's a negative for KJ Osborne. Thielen's going to be out. Dalvin Cook was practicing in full. Remember, he had the illness on Wednesday. He'll be good to go. MVS was activated. Cobb was designated to return, but he's not playing this week. That's more probably a play if you're playing like actual playoff contest, if you're going to play DFS in the playoffs. But I don't think he's going to return this week. So it's Adams, it's Osborne, or it's Jefferson. Osborne maybe in the flex. You better be in a deeper format. And then no more Alan Lazard because MVS is back. They kind of take away from each other. If you really need an upside play, it's MVS. But I probably wouldn't be looking for upside plays as secondary or tertiary players on offenses in a game that's going to be 5 degrees, right? Because they're still going to use Adams. They're going to use Aaron Jones. They're going to use A.J. Dillon, especially probably because, if it's freezing out, and why wouldn't you just run A.J. Dillon a ton, especially if you can use that as play action with Devonta Adams? Like, just feature Devonta Adams in the passing attack, smash mouth offense and the running game for A.J. Dillon. That is probably what we're going to see from the Packers. I would expect it to be relatively productive. I expect them to score into the mid-20s, but that's just not a game environment that's really focusing on MVS. Maybe he catches one long touchdown, but I probably wouldn't play Lazard, probably wouldn't play MVS, and realistically, I probably wouldn't play Osborne as well. I would stick to Adams and Jefferson. Final game of the week, Monday Night Football. Cleveland Browns traveling to Pittsburgh take on the Steelers. We've got a low 41-point total, 3.5-point road favorites for the Browns. Looking at just over 22 points for them, just under 19 points for the Steelers in what will probably be Big Ben's last home game. He's going to want to throw the ball a ton. That's going to increase the floor and the ceiling for a guy like Deontay Johnson. It's going to increase the floor and the ceiling for Chase Claypool. I don't know that you're playing Chase Claypool. He hasn't shown the upside. You know that Chase Claypool didn't get you to the championship, so I think you're playing Deontay Johnson. You're not playing Claypool. Freiermuth should return. He was full on Thursday. I don't see why he wouldn't be playing. Quality, high-end, tight end 2. Definitely not a must start. I think Deontay Johnson's the only must start on this team. And then for the Browns, you don't love their passing attack. It's a low total game. They're going to run the ball a lot, but you can play Jarvis Landry. In a 8, 10, and 12 team league, I would say that you did not get to the championship featuring Landry, so stick with the guys who got you there and don't play Landry. In a 14 or 16 team league, it is possible even using him at the second flex spot, and so sure. But I would stick to the ground attack. I mean, you got to think that 30th in rush defense CVA, 32nd yards per rush attempt for the Steelers. You have to think that Cleveland's going to be running the ball as much as they can and not throwing the ball a ton. And Landry needs volume. He's not a guy that's going to hit on a deep touchdown. DPJ could, but he's just not going to see enough volume to be worth starting. So it's Deontay Johnson, maybe Jarvis, maybe Chase Claypool, but I would stick to just Deontay Johnson in the passing attack, and then maybe Pat Freiermuth if you need him. You've been using him at tight end when he's healthy. I think he's a quality option, could easily score a touchdown in this spot. So good option. I would play Pat Freiermuth if you had him, and you don't have someone ranked inside the top 12. And again, they're free. The rankings are free this week. You can look them up, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. They're going to change probably multiple times a day. I would imagine there'll be another update times an hour. Probably be another update, I don't know, 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm really not 100% sure, but there'll be an update this afternoon. There'll be an update tomorrow on Sunday. There'll be plenty of updates. So yeah, look at the latest rankings. If you're watching this the next day on Saturday, I recommend doing what I did, just pull up the rankings and follow along. But you can do whatever you want to do. So that is the end of this one. Hope you all did enjoy. If you did, how about hitting the like button, and how about subscribing to the channel if you're new here. But thanks for watching.